A lot of people kind of get that twisted. They think like all the quests are like in Kappa is like the main gameplay loop for Tarkov. It's not. That's just a byproduct of development because we don't have the rest of the game yet. And so people usually kind of think like, oh, Kappa endgame, you know, finishing all the quests, that's endgame. It's not. Escaping Tarkov is endgame. Open world is endgame. The arena mode, excuse me, is endgame. Those are endgame features. Endgame does not exist in EFT. KS-23 would be a sick-ass gun if it wasn't the most, like, one of the most common guns of the game. You know what I mean? You want to try snake on me, bitch? You want to try snake on man who cleans Tarkov? You get cleaned up, bitch. Keter, though. I respect the Keter, bro. Ketter's sweet. People sleep on this gun. That gun ruined factory again, man. This gun? Well, I mean, chat, you guys got to understand, like, EFT is still very much in development. There's still a lot of things that are going to change, and that also includes the availability of items. If in a game you allow players after a certain point to easily acquire the same item that is very effective at killing people, in this example close range, if you allow people to say buy it from the traders, find it in a raid, therefore it's also found on the flea market, and then you also find it in players' hands in raid, so a non-found in raid version, you now have 4 large areas of the game where you can acquire the same item. You can play factory for an hour, not use a KS-23, and probably, assuming you survived every single raid, probably have 5 KS-23s at the end of those 5 raids. And so, because EFT's item distribution is completely fucked up, because you can find the same item in every economy area of the game, it creates overdistribution. What does overdistribution cause? Normalities. When you have normalities, you run into the same situation over and over again. When you're running the same situation over and over again, because you're running the same dudes with the same gear, you get bored because you're seeing the same thing happen. And it makes it to where people can focus on only 1% of the game's content, in this words, a gun, primarily. Like, then they ignore everything else. It's not because they can't get a KS-23. If people couldn't get KS-23s, they wouldn't run them because they'd have to choose something else. It just has to do with the overabundance of gear in this game and where it's all coming from. And want to know how you fix that problem? I'll tell you, chat. I'll tell you. And I'm just using this as a rough example. Don't think this is a suggestion. Make KS-23s only spawn on high karma scavs. That's it. So you could get them off the flea market. However, KS-23s literally would not circulate into the game until people have leveled their scav up high enough to have high karma to spawn with the gun. So not only do you have to get the karma up, you also have to spawn in with the gun, and then you have to survive with it. However, that also makes it available on the flea market. But since it's so much more rare and it only comes from one instance of the entire game, in this case, player scavs with high karma, it would be a very expensive item because its price and its power and rarity would be equal. When you make very powerful items very common, as common as an SKS or as common as like any other kind of like mid-tier item in the game, people are going to run that item. It just has to do with over distribution. And because of that too, it kind of can create an uninteresting gameplay loop where players can basically do anything and get the same item for it, instead of like having to try and level your scav karma up to get a KS-23. And that way players now have to focus on a very specific area of the game in order to get the item that they want, instead of it, you know, being everywhere throughout the economy. That has a couple secondary effects too, which would be you find a KS-23 in the hands of a PMC, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy had a KS-23, holy shit. And you'd be like stoked about it because now you have a KS-23 and you know that only comes from high karma scavs and how rare that gun is, and you respect its power. Or if you get fucking blasted by a KS-23, it wouldn't happen that much because not as many people would be running them. And you would respect the power behind the item. You'd be like, fuck, that guy one-shot me. And you look at the raid stream, you're like, oh, fuck, he shot me with 4-gauge. Oh, fuck, he had a KS-23, GG. Instead of it being like 10 raids in a row, you get killed by a dude with a KS-23, where it becomes normal, right? You get what I'm saying? That's how you fix those issues. That's literally it. You just have to take really powerful items and specifically place them throughout different areas of the game. That's it. That's literally all BSG has to do. They just have to like make some items only on the traders, some items like only craftable in the hideout, some items only found in raid, and there's a lot of ways you can do that. where it's like boss only items, raider only items, container only items, marked room only items. You know what I mean? And once you do that, it opens up a lot of new avenues for players to focus on specific paths to find a specific item instead of all of the paths giving you the same item. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I'm trying to explain this as best I can. Wait, you were behind me? Bro, I thought that was in front of me for sure. As soon as I turned my head and localized the sound, dude. What the fuck? Bro, I swear he was in front of me. Tagilla is the only one who spawns as loot, and I love that. Yeah, exactly. Because like if you want like Tagilla items, you got to go kill Tagilla. And so not only does he have to spawn, right? You have to kill him and then make it out of the raid, which is kind of a difficult task, which kind of is a good reflection of like the power behind like his helmet and his armor. It's like the rarity is respected because like it's not that easy to go do that. Like that's not something every single player can do. I'm sure there are some really good players who can have a kit that is specifically designed to kill Tagilla, which is smart. But I think that's super cool because players are now like focusing on specific gear sets to go into a raid to kill a specific enemy to get specific items. Instead of like, I'll just go in with like my normal kit that I'm always used to using and, you know, I can get the same item that way, you know? It would just make the game much more interesting. Will they change tasks over the update? No. The reason why is because like the tasks are side missions. It's not the main storyline. Eventually EFT will get to a point where like the side missions won't matter. You don't have to do the side missions to beat the game because they're completely outside of the primary story. They're side missions after all. A lot of people kind of get that twisted. They think like all the quests are like in Kappa is like the main gameplay loop for Tarkov. It's not. That's just a byproduct of development because we don't have the rest of the game yet. And so people usually kind of think like, oh, Kappa, endgame, you know, finishing all the quests, that's endgame. It's not. Escaping Tarkov is endgame. Open world is endgame. The arena mode, excuse me, is endgame. Those are endgame features. Endgame does not exist in EFT. So yeah, speedruns on the main story would be interesting too. I bet Pestley will definitely be doing some shit like that for sure. Is arena going to be sold separately? Yes, for $1,000. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. No, arena will be something we actually have to take part in order to progress in the main storyline. So the arena itself is a physical location in Tarkov, and it's heavily connected to the story of the PMC. In other words, like you have to go compete in the arena to progress far enough and to escape Tarkov. You probably I think it's like you have to gain like respect or something. People want to see you like be a skilled warrior or whatever. But no, it's gonna be part of the main game, bro. It's gonna be part of 1.0.